cake, everyone! Have you ever thought about what would happen on a huge passenger liner, like a city on water, if it were to encounter a severe storm? Just imagine you're planning your vacation, looking forward to sipping cocktails by the pool, winning money at the casino, and dancing the night away while a massive machine transports you across the ocean or to warm islands. But instead, during the cruise, all you can think about is survival and praying. Few people think about this until something terrible happens. Passengers on a cruise film truly frightening footage worthy of the biggest disaster movies. Today I will tell you and show you the storm on a passenger liner through the eyes of eyewitnesses. First of all, what do you know about the modern cruise liners? If your knowledge ends with watching the movie Titanic, then forget it. Today's passenger ships would make it look like a tortoise compared to Usain Bolt. They are enormous monsters, 15 stories high and 3 football fields long, that not only have comfortable cabins with all the amenities, but also various restaurants, bars, spa salons, pools, and all kinds of entertainment, including casinos, tennis courts, or climbing walls. Yes, there are even those. For example, one of the ships in today's video, Anthem of the Seas, is 347 meters long. That's 6 Pisa towers, almost 4 Statue of Liberties, or even taller than the Eiffel Tower. Well, you get the idea. A truly massive monster. And yet, this is not even the largest cruise liner in the world. Looking at such giants, it's hard to believe that anything could shake them. But the ocean is a powerful force, capable of tossing huge ships around like feathers or straws, depending on what you prefer. Even eyewitnesses who found themselves in a 3-point storm on the Norwegian escape ship on March 3, 2019, experienced all the charms of the liner tilting to the side. People had to duck from flying tables and chairs. Passengers in public areas were injured. It was very noisy all around. Bottles of alcohol were falling in bars, and dishes were falling out of cabinets in restaurants. The ship itself didn't sustain damage and safely reached the port Canaveral, where first aid was provided to those in need. After that, the liner was allowed to continue the journey as if nothing had happened. This was not the end of the Norwegian escape adventure, as it ran aground in March 2022 due to strong winds. But that's a whole different story. So we've learned that you can sit out a 3-point storm on a cruise liner in your cabin, sleep through it, and not notice anything. But wait, you might ask, what are storm points? Who assigns them? The points are assigned on the Beaufort scale adopted by the World Meteorological Organization. This scale has 12 levels, ranging from calm to hurricane. Each level corresponds to a specific wind speed and the wind's impact on land, or, in our case, on the sea. And if 0 points mean calm with a mirror smooth sea, then at 12 points, wind speeds can exceed 120 km per hour and wave heights can reach 20 meters. There is no visibility and the air is filled with foam and spray. I understand that these dry numbers don't affect you. It's time to find out what will happen to the passengers on the liner if the storm gets really bad. Something similar happened to the Anthem of the Seas. In February 2016, the ship hit a terrible storm on its way to the Caribbean islands. The liner was passing by North Carolina when the captain tried to avoid the center of the storm, but it didn't save the ship from 9-meter waves and 201 km per hour winds. The waves were so strong that they rocked and shook the ship so much that the passengers thought that they were going to sink. Dishes, flower pots, and chairs were flying in all directions and breaking. One of the 2 Azipod ship power plants was damaged. They provide the movement of the ship and replace the steering and aft steering devices. If you've watched at least one movie about a shipwreck, you've probably seen the scene where water is pouring down the carpeted stairs, flooding the deck. The passengers of the Anthem of the Seas saw something similar, but not on the screen, but in real life. Looking at such footage, can you say, is this the filming of eyewitnesses or a new James Cameron movie? As a result of the incident, 4 people out of almost 6,000 received minor injuries, and most of the passengers and crew were only scared. Is it a small thing to be scared? I doubt it. The Anthem of the Seas also hit a storm in September 2016, but the wind gusts were weaker and the damage to the ship was clearly less, although the passengers also had to sit in their cabins for part of the journey and nerves were frayed. As you have already guessed, we are in an upward trajectory, and next up is a ship that almost became another exhibit in a famous Norwegian ship graveyard. In March 2019, the passenger liner Viking Sky encountered a severe storm off the coast of Norway. According to the crew, the weather conditions were within the ship's capabilities, but something went wrong. All engines failed. The liner tilted to 41 degrees. Waves from 10 to 15 meters caused significant damage to the extent that multiple fires broke out on board. The ship drafted towards a rocky shore, and furniture inside the vessel flew into people and broke against the walls. Imagine the horror of the passengers as they saw the approaching cliffs through the windows, the ship shaking, water pouring into the rooms through broken windows, a ceiling collapsing in one of the halls, and all they could do was wait for other ships to come to their aid. Lifeboats couldn't help evacuate passengers due to the rough seas. Emergency services then called in helicopters, which rescued people throughout the night. It took 30 flights for the helicopters to evacuate nearly 500 people. The storm was so severe that one of the rescue vessels also had engine problems. By morning, the crew managed to restart 3 out of 4 of the liner's engines, and the evacuation was stopped. One of the sailors, the first to arrive to help, said that if the crew had not managed to start the engines, the liner would have crashed onto the rocks. At one point, the ship was only 100 meters away from the shore. It's not for nothing that this place off Norwegian coast is called the ship graveyard. 17 people were injured in the accident, 4 of them seriously. After restarting the engines, Viking Sky made its way to the nearest port and disembarked the remaining 436 passengers and 458 crew members, after which it was towed for repairs. Truly coordinated work by rescue services, and the next case is sure to leave you moved. This time it's very serious. On February 14, 2005, the cruise liner Grand Voyager got caught in a storm 100 kilometers from Menorca Island in the Mediterranean Sea. You might say, so what? But the laws of the sea are simple. The heavier the ship, the harder it is for a storm to capsize it. And Grand Voyager, although a passenger cruise liner, was not the biggest or heaviest, measuring only 180 meters long. In other words, even smaller than the Titanic. Therefore, when an 8-point storm with waves as high as 14 meters and wind speeds of 100 kilometers per hour hit it, the liner tilted so much that it almost capsized. A strong wave broke the glass railings on the ship's deck and water entered the engine room, damaging the engine control system. In fact, they simply broke down. The electricity was cut off throughout the ship. It was so scary that even the radio didn't work. The captain immediately signaled distress using an emergency transmitter. The power of this transmitter is usually not enough for anything. This time, all the distress signals were mostly transmitted by the tanker Gimme. It was the closest and the first to receive the distress signal. The rescue services had to communicate with the liner using Morse code, which, according to a representative, was a very bad signal. By evening, the crew managed to start 2 out of 4 diesel engines, and the ship reached the port on the island of Sardinia. As a result of the accident, several passengers received minor injuries. There were reportedly between 732 and 776 people on board the Grand Voyager, including 474 passengers, most of whom were Spanish. I should note that there was quite a mess on board the entire time. While fire extinguishers rolled around the floor, the piano broke into several parts, furniture flew and broke. Everything on the ship suffered from the storm and wave impacts. The cabinet continued to entertain the crew and passengers, and the bar continued to serve vermouth to everyone. As they say, the show must go on. That's how Valentine's Day went. Many eyewitnesses who were on passenger liners and ferries during a severe storm describe it as a very frightening experience. It's understandable when you want to sunbathe, dine in a restaurant and swim in a pool, but instead have to try to maintain balance and avoid flying furniture, keep hidden food with you, and see the endless ocean outside the window while feeling like the ship is sinking. It's not a pleasant experience. However, despite everything, most passengers highly appreciate the professionalism of the crew and the safety measures taken. All the passengers of the Norwegian breakaway caught in a historic blizzard probably cannot say the same. On January 4, 2018, the eastern coast of North America was hit by a rare and powerful blizzard. Experts called it a bomb cyclone, which led to massive destruction and loss of life along the coast. Streets and cities were flooded with water in the south and covered in snow in the north, and airports were closed. And on the coastal zone, a severe storm began, which the Norwegian breakaway encountered on its way from the Bahamas to New York. The liner carried 6,000 people on board, and indeed the footage of the ship looks more like a horror movie than a tropical cruise paradise. It's a real ghost ship covered in snow and ice, with icicles hanging from the handrails. A 198 km/h wind rocked the ship and caused it to tilt. People couldn't stand on their feet and had to hold onto furniture and stairs. Dishes and unsecured items flew off shelves. The wind spun lounge chairs on the open deck like twigs in a tornado. People had to sleep in corridors and public areas because their cabins were flooded and unsuitable for sleeping. Some, on the contrary, couldn't leave their cabins because of the rough seas. suffered from malaise and struggled with seasickness. The tilt was so strong that people fell off their beds, leading to fractures and concussions. Fear led to some passengers wearing life jackets for 3 days. Water leaked everywhere, flowed on the floor, poured into elevator shafts, and dripped from the ceiling. The crew tried to deal with the water using extra blankets, cloths, and towels, but it didn't help. There was too much water. The captain and crew kept passengers in the dark, leaving them with nothing but praying, worrying, and posting angry messages on Twitter that they would never buy a cruise on the Norwegian breakaway again, as their dream vacation turned into a snowy nightmare. I know that after everything you've heard it may be difficult to believe, but modern cruise ships are designed to be very stable, taking into account strong storms in the fall and winter in the Atlantic Ocean. Thanks to merchandised ship management and more modern navigation technology, most modern passenger ships that have encountered storms have been able to avoid disaster. Often, human factors lead to accidents. Weather reports underestimate wind speeds by 3 times, or the captain incorrectly assesses weather conditions and fails to take necessary safety measures for passengers and crew during a severe storm, which can of course lead to disaster, or the captain simply overestimates the strength of his ship and modern technology. In any case, as with airplanes, each case of a crash, accident, or any other incident is extensively covered in the media only because they don't happen often, although this is unlikely to calm those who have experienced one of those liners that I told you about today.